After the 7th Battle of Ruusan in 1000 BBY, the Sith were reformed under the rule of two, a change masterminded by Darth Bane. But while Bane implemented the rule of two, it fell to his apprentice to ensure that it would be set in stone, to set an example for the Sith to follow for centuries to come. That apprentice was Darth Zannah, and while she was less well known than her master, she was every bit as important to the survival of the Order of the Sith Lords as he was. In this video, we'll be telling her story.
Attention, Sergeant on deck!
Zannah was born in 1010 BBY on the planet Somov Rift during the last decade of the New Sith Wars. She spent her childhood with her cousins, Daravit, Hardin, and Root, who knew Zannah by her nickname, Rain. Somov Rift apparently escaped the worst of the New Sith Wars, but it wasn't spared entirely. When Zannah was 10 years old, Jedi Knights came to the planet looking for Force sensitives to recruit into the Army of Light, which was battling the Sith for control of the galaxy on the planet Ruusan. The Army of Light was so desperate that it had opened its ranks even to Force-sensitive children, and Zannah's friends were among those who were recruited to go to Ruusan. Zannah showed only a little potential to the Force, but she didn't want to be left out, so she got one of her friends to help her convince the Jedi recruiter to bring her along. At Ruusan, the recruiter's ship was attacked by Sith starfighters and badly damaged. During the encounter, Zannah was knocked out of the ship and fell into the planet's forests. The Jedi assumed she was dead, but Zannah had survived. One of Ruusan's bouncers, a species of furry floating sentience, had cushioned her fall. Zannah befriended the bouncer that had saved her life, who was named La, and the two spent the next few weeks wandering Ruusan together. Along the way, Zannah discovered that she was stronger in the Force than was previously believed, and she used her abilities to protect herself and La from the fallout of the ongoing battles of Ruusan. Elsewhere on the planet, the 7th Battle of Ruusan saw the Sith utterly destroyed, victims of their own last resort, a fearsome weapon known as a thought bomb. But Ruusan was devastated by the conflict, and the mass destruction drove many of the bouncers insane. The mad bouncers used their telepathic abilities to spread their madness to the survivors from the Army of Light, who ultimately resorted to killing them to save themselves. La had not succumbed to the same madness as many of her kin, but nonetheless, when she was spotted by a pair of Jedi Knights, they decided to shoot first and ask questions later. La was killed, and Zannah was consumed by grief and anger. When the two Jedi approached her, she unleashed her fury upon them, snapping their necks with the Force. This act drew the attention of Darth Bane, the last surviving Sith Lord. Sensing Zannah's potential and her anger, Bane offered to train her as his apprentice, an offer Zannah accepted. As a first test, Bane told her to meet him at the planet Onderon, leaving Zannah to wander Ruusan in search of transport. She eventually made her way to a shuttle, and the family that owned the craft took her aboard, assuming that she was orphaned by the war. They gave her a chance to come with them and live a more peaceful life, but after ruminating on the choice, Zannah decided that she would follow the way of the Sith instead. She killed the family and took their shuttle to Onderon, where Bane named her Darth Zannah and took her as his apprentice. Zannah and Bane spent the first decade after Ruusan on the planet Ambria, where Zannah received instruction in the ways of the Sith. She built a lightsaber for herself and learned the ancient art of Sith sorcery from the holocron of Freedom Nad. Bane himself didn't have the innate gift required for sorcery, so Zannah was mostly on her own in learning it from the holocron. Over the years, she became one of its greatest masters, able to drive any opponent mad with a nudge of the dark side. Eventually, Zannah became strong enough that Bane began sending her on missions. He led her in on the Sith Grand Plan, his plot to destroy the Republic and the Jedi from within, and he instructed her in his vision of Sith philosophy. 10 years after Ruusan, Zannah was dispatched on a mission to the Jedi Temple, where she was to infiltrate the Jedi archives on Bane's behalf. There, she ran into her cousin, Daravit, who had seen Zannah with Bane before they left Ruusan and had alerted the Jedi to the survival of the Sith. Zannah kidnapped him and escaped the Jedi Temple, rendezvousing with her master on Tython. But they were followed to Tython by a team of Jedi Knights, and in the resultant battle, Bane was critically injured, though all the Jedi perished as well. Zannah brought Bane back to Umbria, where she sought out the healer Caleb, whom she tricked into healing Bane on the condition that she would turn herself and her master in. As Caleb healed her master, Zannah contacted the Jedi Temple and told them that Bane was alive on Umbria. She then killed Caleb and used Sith sorcery to drive Darovit mad, setting him up to be mistaken for Bane by the Jedi. The Jedi fell for the ruse, and from that point forward, they believed the Sith to be extinct. After this, Bane and Zannah moved to Ciutric IV, where, using a fortune stolen from the Brotherhood of Darkness, they adopted civilian identities as wealthy merchants. In their new Ciutric mansion, they amassed a great collection of Sith lore and artifacts, and Bane completed Zannah's training, teaching her everything he knew. But Zannah held off on killing her master, even as Bane started to grow older and weaker. Bane believed that she was waiting for him to weaken, which he believed defeated the purpose of the Rule of Two. But Zannah had other reasons. For one, she thought Bane's growing weakness was a ruse meant to test her, and for another, she wanted to find an apprentice of her own before she made her move. 10 years after the move to Ciutric, Zannah ran into the renegade Dark Jedi Set Hearth, who she believed would make a promising apprentice. She attacked him in his home on Nal Hutta, and when he recovered after just a few days, Zannah said that she had found him to be strong enough and offered to train him in the ways of the Sith. Hearth accepted, but only because he thought the crazy woman who had broken into his home and attacked him with Sith magic would probably kill him if he said no. Zannah and Hearth returned to Ciutric to confront Bane, only to find that he had been captured by the Huntress, a Force-sensitive Ictochi working for the Princess of Doan. They traveled to Doan instead, where Zannah learned that Bane had learned the ancient Sith technique of essence transfer, which would allow him to take over her body and essentially live forever. Bane had also recruited the Huntress as a replacement apprentice, who he named Darth Cognis. Zannah believed that Bane had become afraid of death and was trying to rule the Sith indefinitely, and vowed to strike him down and usurp the title of Dark Lord. She was unable to have her last battle with Bane on Doan, however, and when she returned to her ship, she found that Set Hearth had run away. The loss of her would-be apprentice didn't deter Zannah, however, and she pursued Bane to Umbria. On Umbria, Zannah and Bane fought one last battle, and Zannah emerged triumphant. Her skill in Sith sorcery gave her the edge, and in the end, Bane tried to resort to essence transfer, attempting to take over Zannah's body. But Zannah's will proved the stronger, and she destroyed Darth Bane, although a piece of his spirit would exist within her until her own end came. Now the Dark Lord of the Sith, Darth Zannah took Darth Cognis as her apprentice, using Bane's defeat as her first lesson in the philosophy of the Sith. The rest of Zannah's story is unknown. Darth Cognis, of course, eventually bested Zannah as Zannah had bested Bane, and the line of the Dark Lords of the Sith continued through her. Even though it was Zannah who had killed Darth Bane, it was because of her that his legacy, his order, and his teachings persisted for the next 1,000 generations. She set the example for future apprentices by adhering to the Rule of Two, and in doing so, she ensured the survival of the Sith. As with our video on Darth Bane, the bulk of this video's content came from Drew Karpyshan's Darth Bane trilogy, which we highly recommend reading, as this was just a heavily abbreviated summary. But what do you think? Who do you think is cooler, Zannah or Bane? Let us know your thoughts in the comments section below, and as always guys, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.